Have you ever wondered why certain cartoons just pull out their grubby little fingers and tickle your fancy until you're dazed and short of breath? Probably. Maybe not in those exact disturbing words, but probably. Cartoons speak to each one of us in a different way, and I realize my favorites are those with a voice that sounds like they're gonna break my kneecaps in a Vegas alleyway. And by that I mean the dark cartoons. Or more specifically, I guess, cartoons with darkness in them. And I think the world at large has a similar taste. Some of the most successful cartoons and animations create a story with mature, dark content, but expertly hide it behind a lighter, friendlier tone. But hey, what is tone, aside from one of those pretentious words that you had to learn to pass 7th grade English? Tone can be best understood as the umbrella term for all the things an author or animator does to set the mood of their work. And the best thing about the mood of a cartoon is that you cannot tell someone what it is. It has to be felt. If you see dull colors, simple art, curt dialogue, and slow music, you're going to feel a mood that, well, see, actually, I probably don't even have to describe that mood for you. It is already in your head. And that is kind of the point. Conversely, if you have bright colors, experimental animation, wacky dialogue, and fanciful music, you're going to get, well, you get Adventure Time. Most cartoons fall into that second description of tone because it is inviting to the ever-coveted target audience of animation: psychopaths. 95% of people who watch cartoons are children, and the other 5% are 20-somethings who wish they were still children. At the same time though, there is no doubt that certain cartoons and animations resonate with adults. This is because in the same way stout psychopaths are drawn to bright colors and cool animations, we civilized long psychopaths are drawn into murder, infidelity, existential dread, crippling financial imperilment, and the ever more complicating landscape of genuine human connection. You know, the good stuff. And the best cartoons are able to cover their sadistic, reprehensible nature underneath a white sheet of inviting tonality, like a pixelated Klansman. The plot of Little Mermaid is, well, a little mermaid wanting to discover a new world. She makes a deal with a magical octopus lady, gets turned into a human, and falls into a deep, reciprocal royal love in 3 days. When the octopus lady betrays her, the little Humaid's big, strapping prince lover vanquishes the octopus lady and everyone lives happily ever after. You would totally take your kids to see something like that, right? Well, what if I told you about a movie featuring Ariel, a nearly nude 16-year-old who runs away from home and sells her soul to Sea Satan, who then convinces Ariel that she doesn't need to speak because all women are good for is keeping their mouths shut and looking hot while doing it. Oh, and what if I told you that in the same movie, Sea Satan turns Ariel's father into a bottom-feeding polyp, only shortly after to be impaled and gored by the splintered bowsprit of a ship? Yeah, that seems like a heavy movie for a kid. But hey, okay, let's go with something a bit different. How about Lilo and Stitch? Who doesn't like Hawaii? On the surface, its tone is pretty light, having a beautiful setting, goofy aliens, and a huge black dude named Cobra Bubbles. Doesn't get more kid-friendly than that. The movie is all about family and showing that no matter what kind of person you are, you can rise to the occasion and be there when others need you. Or we could talk about the story of Nani, the oldest of 2 orphans, struggling to make ends meet and shield her younger sister Lilo from the mounting threat of being taken away by social workers because of an inability to provide a safe living environment. On top of that, a galactic criminal is on trial for illegal genetic tampering, having created an extremely intelligent, nigh invincible killing machine with zero empathy and a lust for chaos, which mistakenly gets sent to Earth. Combining those 2 storylines will totally make a great movie for the whole family to see. And it did. Another, you say? I don't even need to get into The Lion King because the internet has pretty well documented how it is just Hamlet with fur. Beautiful musical about coming of age on the streets, dark yarn about fratricide and identity disillusionment in the sheets. Oh, and don't worry, Pixar did it too. The Incredibles has the tone of a comic book with flashy superpowers, dastardly villains, and a deeply explored theme about identity in relation to society and family. But you might have forgotten about how the conflict of the first half of the movie centered around Mrs. Incredible being convinced that her husband was going away for days at a time to have an affair. Or that Mr. Incredible was knee-deep in a midlife crisis and was knocking on obesity's door because of how his desk job battered his soul into apathetic paste. Or that Syndrome became one of the greatest serial killers of all time by systematically hunting down all of Mr. Incredible's superpowered friends. Or how about the time a guy just tried playing killing himself at the beginning of the movie, then complained when Mr. Incredible saved him? And they say millennials didn't come around to the 90s. But then we have the ugly duckling of cartoons. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Are you seeing a difference between this movie and the others? People just didn't like it that much. But Savage Books, it has all the dark, depressing stuff all the other ones have. And that's true, but having mature content in animations is not the key to a good movie. That would be the tone that accompanies the dark content. And Hunchback's tone is darker than Mr. Popo. The movie begins with Frollo and his men murdering a woman, then mulling over murdering her infant child. Instead of committing infanticide, Frollo adopts the child and keeps him locked away in a bell tower, telling him constantly what a disfigured abomination he is. A while after, we segue into Frollo singing about how he wants to bang a gypsy, and if he can't, he will burn down Paris and kill her. He and his men then go on a rampage of arson and property destruction, with possible murder, until they finally catch the gypsy Esmeralda and attempt to burn her at the stake. The movie only ends after Frollo falls to his death into a literal pool of molten lava. Like I said, a key difference between this animation and the others is the tone. There is nothing light to hide the darkness in Hunchback. There's no way to tell the story without the mature content becoming the focus. The best animated movies have a dark side, but those dark things never hijack the story. There was no section in The Little Mermaid where Ariel contemplated the existential underpinnings of selling a part of herself for a man. The story of The Incredibles never hinged on Helen Parr sleuthing out the exact identity of who was suspected of being the other in her husband's affair. Darkness in animations work well because the tone appeals to the young, while the content grounds the characters in realistic struggle for the grown. Hunchback wanted to be a kids' movie, but told what amounted to an adults-only story. Its narrative hinged on murder, lust, and religious zealotry, which should all be reserved for Scientology. To craft narratives that both children and adults will love, create that mood of wonder and freeness that cartoons should have by centering your plot on simple issues that even a child can get behind, but give that plot a backdrop of real struggle for the characters involved. Unless you're Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, then you can break all the rules.